Good evening, friends. How are you guys doing? I am tired, and it's been a long day. I started at 6 in the morning, and I want to talk with you about something that really scares returnees. It turns out returnees are fairly scared, not all of them, really scared of dating partners who live at home. And by home, I mean partners who live in Africa or live in Kenya. Lately, I've been getting a lot of calls about folks who are single and they're just looking to connect with folks, whatever that may be. Some people are looking for long term partnerships, others are just looking for partners, PRN, others are just looking for all kinds of things that I'm just learning about. Again, I'm a late bloomer, so there's some things that are new to me. But for some reason, which I'm going to share with you in 10 minutes, a lot of returnees are really scared of dating girls or guys in Kenya. And that's what I want to talk with you about. But before we explore all of that, welcome to our beautiful hacienda in Kisumu, Karating in Western Kenya. If you are discovering our channel for the first time, they call me Wonodede. This is where we live. I spend quite a bit of time in Long Beach, California, but also I spend a lot of time in Kenya, in the village. My goal is to eventually move down here and spend the rest of my life. And it's a process. It's taking me longer than I anticipated, but it's been a few years. We've done a few things. We started with building our house, and now we're setting up a few things that would make it easier for my family to live here, having spent nearly 2 decades in America. And so if you share similar interests, you're more than welcome to hit me in the number below. If you're looking for builders, you're looking for interior guys, you're looking for landscapers, reach out. We'll share what we know. And for things we don't, we will always ask questions. But again, if you've not subscribed, check and add your name to it. As I said, it's almost midnight here in paradise. But we're still grinding. This is the time that I get to record a few videos. This is the time I get to talk to my clients from diaspora. And when I'm done, I do my work in America because I'm still employed. I still have an 8 to 5, quote unquote. I still got to do my work. And what is killing me about this is that I sometimes need to be awake at night to do my American job. And then during the day, I'm out in the field running around building and doing things like that. But we love it. So anyway, folks, if you are single in Kenya and you're single in diaspora, there's always a need for folks to connect. So I'm actually getting calls from both ends, calls from single people in Kenya who would like to connect with single people in diaspora. And likewise, I'm also getting calls from people who are single in diaspora that just want to connect. But for some reason, I get the feeling that single people in diaspora are kind of scared, not all of them, are kind of scared of dating people back in the motherland. And let's explore why. The first and the most obvious challenge that many people worry about is that if you are single in diaspora and you end up connecting with a person who has never been to diaspora, then there's that risk that this person who has never been to diaspora is trying to just use you to get to diaspora. And the risk is real. I've seen very many people leave diaspora, come and meet nice people here in Africa. Then they bring them to diaspora, and immediately, it doesn't take too long, their marriages fall apart right after paperwork is done. So yes, that risk is real, and it's one of the most obvious one that is known. So I won't belabor the point. Now, oftentimes when people break up, it's not always because of papers, and we'll explore. The second reason why I think people are scared or some people struggle dating in Africa is just the cultural difference. Even if you were born and raised in Africa, once you leave Africa and you spend a lot of time there, you change quite a bit. Many of us change, whether you know it or not. And so when you meet people who are called quote unquote fresh from the boat, it is possible that culturally you're on very different planes. And it turns out that women tend to adjust faster than we do. And so if you've lived in diaspora for 20 years and then you bring in somebody who has never lived in diaspora, within the first couple of years, if you survive, it'll be quite a steep learning curve on both ends. because there's some things that your partner from Africa is going to have to learn and adjust, while this at the same time you're going to need to excuse me, adjust to quite a bit. So it's learning on both ends, and it takes way more patience than many people realize. And so if you end up dating somebody or marrying somebody who is fresh from Africa, when you've lived in diaspora for a while, I hope you have an ogonia full of patience. Because if you don't have that, sometimes your union can be really tested. And it just so happens that a lot of the folks that have never lived outside Africa, in my view, at least the ones that I know, tend to be more on the conservative end of things. And so when you talk about certain topics, when you're discussing issues that require progressive mindedness, you'll notice differences. And also people who live in the continent tend to be more religious, as opposed to many folks who live in diaspora that even though they may be religious, but their commitment to religion may not be as fervent as it was. In fact, even for me, there's some topics I just choose not to talk about. Religious topics, I choose not to talk about when I'm with my family back at home here, because there are things I think about, and I'm like, I think this is really nonsense. But of course, I cannot say that because then they'll think, oh, you're just going to hell. So people in the motherland tend to be a lot more on the conservative end, and so if you're conservative in diaspora, then this would actually be a good spot for you. But for those who are more the progressive end, there's going to be some learning curve going on. And then thirdly, the power difference is one that really can lend itself to abuse. Because when you bring somebody straight from diaspora, for the most part, in the first couple of years, at least the first couple, they are going to depend on you 100%, not just financially, socially, emotionally, and every other way. Because when you move from Kenya or from Africa to diaspora, when you move there the first time, you don't have friends. You have no connection. You probably don't have a job. Some people do have jobs, but many folks don't have a job. Maybe you don't even have a license, driver's license, or you can't even drive. And so you're depending on the diaspora person to not only help take care of your bills, they're the ones who are chauffeuring you around to different places. So your friend circle becomes their friend circle. You're depending on them for that. And then things like driving, you also need help to be moved from point A to point B. So you are almost wholly dependent on this person. And that experience can be very tough for people who have never left Africa, who were doing really well. Because I remember when I left Africa, I was actually an administrator at high school, doing an okay job. Wasn't perfect. And then I moved to diaspora. I had no income at all and had to depend on people. There is nothing as tough as moving from Kenya or from Africa when you're doing a really good job, and then you come to diaspora and all you gotta do is sit on your butt, watch TV, and wait to be moved from point A to point B. I couldn't even buy an underwear. I had to wait for my brother to send me money and things like that. That can be very difficult. And then immediately when you move, the sense of isolation begins because people are working. You are left at home, people are going to work, and then your spouse comes back after 16 hours, they are tired. And so after a short while, this starts getting to you. And so it's not uncommon for partners who just moved into diaspora to really struggle. And when they struggle with those kinds of experiences, it starts really impacting their relationship. And this is why I say at this point, a very high degree of patience is going to be required because that adjustment can be really tough. And maybe for the person living in diaspora, for the first time, you have to share space. You have to share resources. You have to connect with your partner. And so that adjustment period can be difficult. But like I said, the major challenge is that mentally or emotionally or intellectually, sometimes you're just not on the same page. And those differences can really magnify the problems that everybody has because all relationships experience some problems here and there. But these pressures that people face when they marry or bring spouses from the motherland just can magnify the issues you have. But for men, actually, it turns out really well because, like I said earlier, people who come from their mother tend to be conservative, even in terms of their understanding of male-female relationship, especially if you end up getting kienyeji from the village. So for us men, it's actually fantastic because you come home and then you sometimes end up with a girl who feels that they need to serve you. They come in, they figure out your clothes are washed, they cook for you, they do all of that. So you may end up meeting some of those folks, and it is fantastic. We are not complaining about that. I'm not saying that is how life should be, but yes, oftentimes men end up in those spots. And I know men who specifically will not date women in diaspora, or they will not date any woman who has lived in diaspora for a long time because they think those ones are spoiled. So they tend to go home and get girls from the village. They bring them back to the village. And unfortunately, for many of them, it doesn't work out because these are folks who are very wedded to traditional ways of relations. So what goes wrong with them is that they go and bring up this kienyeji girl, and life is fantastic. She's serving you. She's doing all the things you were imagining. But over time, as their eyes open, as they meet other people, as life begins to happen, because they get to work, they also have other commitments. That goodness that you took from the village disappears. And then you're like, what happened to you? We had a fantastic relationship. You were doing X, Y, Z. Now you're something else. So I'm not discouraging you from dating people from the motherland. All I'm saying is before you do that, just know what you're getting into. It's not a bad thing. Oftentimes, I've seen many, many examples where those unions work. It's just fun. But there are a lot of cases where it does not work because people are not patient to learn from each other. Sometimes people have intentions that are not the best on both ends. It's not always people from home that have bad intentions. Sometimes you have people in diaspora who specifically will date women from the motherland only because they expect people who are like servants, people who they are going to run over. And when they get this, especially women, they come and get women from Africa, bring them aboard, and they terrorize them completely. And unfortunately, some of our women have been around abuse so much to the point where even when they're abused by diaspora spouses, it almost feels like normal. In fact, many of them are even scared of reporting abuse to the police. They will do everything to avoid reporting. So, well, folks, like I say, I am no expert on this matter. You do you. Catch each other, do whatever you want to do. Like I said, whatever you want, it's all up to you. For me, I can only talk about what I see. Some people are looking for marriage, some people are looking to date, some people are looking for partners, PRN. Whatever works for you, do you. I have no moral judgment on any of this stuff. So, well, folks, I'm curious to hear about your experience, and I'll see you in the next. Thank you.